Hey, I'm Munira, a consultant by profession, but a storyteller at heart. This is Munira's Musings, a place to talk about real stories, the thoughts we carry, the questions we ask, and the moments that have shaped who we are. If you're looking for honest conversations, small sparks, insight, inspiration, and ideas, then you're in the right place. Let's talk, let's grow, let's begin. Greetings from Chicagoland. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Munira's Musings. Our guest today is Brenda Reynolds. Welcome to Munira's Musings. Tell me where you're calling us from.
I am in the Philadelphia area.
Nice. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is another episode of Munira's Musings where every story is more than just a story, it's a spark that can light the way to change. Every week, we sit down with remarkable guests whose journeys reveal lessons, insights, and fresh perspectives that might just challenge your thinking. But this isn't about listening, it's about pausing to jot down the ideas that resonate and then finding ways to bring them into your life, into your own business. And you know, the real growth begins with inspiration. And inspiration, when met with action, can create a beautiful magic. So let's lean in together and see what today's conversation unfolds. So, Brenda, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am a small town girl who grew up in central Pennsylvania and at age 18 moved to the Philadelphia area to find my way. And much like all of us, life has continued to give me opportunities to grow and learn and be challenged and fall down and get back up again. And in some ways, that's what I do for my clients as well.
So, what kind of falling downs have you had?
Well, they've been big and little, right? I have had two preterm childbirths with my two boys. One was a little scarier than the other, and that landed me in the hospital was supposed to be 12 weeks on bed rest. It ended up being 6. He came 6 weeks early and spent some time in the NIC unit. So that's one. I've certainly lived through a husband who lost his job several times, and we needed to land on our feet after that. Some A divorce in 2008 when the economy was taking a nosedive, and my life did too. And I'm only giving you that variety for the listening audience to normalize, right? That life is about big falls and small falls, but we're always guaranteed a new one around the corner.
So you said you went through, oh, let's talk the 2008, right? A lot of people were affected. The younger generation don't know about it, but we were, like our people in our generation were affected. A lot of people lost a lot of things. Homes. I was in California at that time. I just purchased my home and, the price nosedove and it was just terrible because now what do you do?
Right.
So how did that affect you?
Well, every part of my life changed at that time. So not only was the economy taking a nosedive, my life was too. I was finding myself, I was had my own consulting practice, but no guaranteed income, no healthcare benefits, and I was divorcing. And that meant trying to figure out, we had just 2 years prior moved into our dream home. And so ultimately, it meant change in our family situation, a change in where I lived and the home I lived in. I decided at that time, because the economy was doing what it was, to accept a job offer inside of a corporation again for the first time in a very, very long time, because at my soul, I am an entrepreneur.
All right.
So that was a big shift. Single parenting. Truly, Munira, every part of my life had to change at that time.
So how did you land on your feet? You said you landed on your feet. How did you do that?
Ooh, I think it was one small decision at a time. I talk about navigating transition fog. It's the topic of a TEDx talk that I did, and it comes from that time because I remember feeling like a big fog had just rolled in over my perfect life plan. and I couldn't see too far forward. So it meant turning on my low beams, which, illuminate 350 feet in front of us in our cars during the fog. And that's all we can see. And that's all we navigate one stretch at a time. And just saying, do the next right thing. What's the next right thing? And sometimes it was, how am I going to get through these next 10 minutes? How do I get through this morning? How do I get through this day? How am I going to get through this week? And slowly coming out of that fog just by making the next right moves.
Just shows up in our life. It's not like it's. I used to live in Bakersfield, California, and the winters were bad because we would have fogs there, literally, because you know nobody could see. And your description is very to the point. The thing was that the kids would have fog delay, but people like us who work had to go to work on time. Anyway, so fog happens, right? And it's real when it's happening to us in our life. We can't see it, but we know that's happening. I myself have gone through foggy days, foggy months, foggy times, if you will. So you talk about now what? So talk to me about that. How do people overcome that? How do you help people? So you are not doing the job anymore. Let's go a little bit back. You don't do the job anymore. You're still a consultant at heart. So how did you transition there, and then how do you help people now?
Yes. So in 2008, I did take that job with my client organization, and they knew what was going on in my life, which was really supportive of me. And they asked me to promise if I would stay with them for at least a year. And of course, I did. I stayed for 4 years, and I got to do some incredible work that made me a smarter consultant because I had been inside of the organization and seeing what it was like to be inside again after a long period of not being inside. And so I really enjoyed those 4 years because I went kicking and screaming into that job. But in the end, it surrounded me with great people, some of whom I still have in my life today, doing great work, helping build a children's hospital in Florida, things that I could never have dreamed of being involved in. And then in 2012, I was ready to come back out and start my own consulting practice again. And part of that was because they had hired somebody I had to report to in the organization, if I'm keeping it very real, who was not a nice person. She went on and she ended up getting fired, but not until a year later. And I couldn't be there. And so what I did is I talked to my client about the idea of coming back out as a consultant in organization development, managing change, the people part of the business, which is the work I was doing, and bringing them along as a key client where they could offset my benefits and the package they were paying me, and instead use me and put me on the hardest jobs the organization had, so that I could use my skills not by sitting in meetings or doing budgets and doing administrative work, but by really just doing the heart of what I did best. And they agreed. They immediately agreed to pay me more for less hours and have me do the hard work. So they actually helped me relaunch my business in 2012 and came along as a key client for a number of years as I was redeveloping connections with other clients as well.
So that's awesome, right? And now you got lucky because this client wanted you, needed you, and took you on. But lots of people don't have that. We are seeing a lot of people have lost jobs in the recent times, and their whole life as they knew it is just changed. So if you were to meet a person like that, what was the advice you would give them?
What we would first do is talk about what their ultimate dream is now, because our dreams change and we often don't take time to re explore them until we find ourselves in a now what moment. So we would need to reframe this now what moment as an opportunity to look again, to say, who am I now? What do I need now? What's important to me now? And get the vision of what they really want to move toward. And then we would begin to slowly both look at their mindset about that as well as their skill set for moving toward that dream. And what are all the tiny micro steps? What are the steps that they need to take to move forward? And oftentimes in the work that I'm doing with people in their now what moment, they need someone like me as a coach to borrow some confidence from at a time when their situation has stolen confidence from them. So borrow the confidence and let's navigate this space together. Because at my heart, with the work I do, and I see it time and again, I really do believe that this fog we're in is a freaking opportunity for growth. That's the punchline that I use. It's really a time of growth, even when it doesn't feel great. And that every now what moment is a why not ready to be unleashed. And it's a chance to say, ooh, I'm in this nowhere land right now. Why not think about what I have yet to do or want to do and go for it? So I think in those uncertain times, there's opportunity that sits right beside a whole bunch of fear.
So you had no problems with COVID. People came, the world shut down. What happened to you?
In COVID, during COVID,
Yes.
it's the craziest things, Munir. I thought that was going to be it again. I thought my business was going to close, that because I was not only consulting with folks, I was also doing a lot of speaking and in-person events. And ironically, the couple of years around COVID were some of my most productive, busy years. And that could in part be because folks were dealing with their now what moments and the topic was really relevant to them and they needed that help. I ended up doing a lot of speaking virtually, a lot of programming virtually, a lot of coaching virtually. So in some ways, I was fortunate that my whole world wasn't around in-person events and that I could keep going.
Okay. So what advice do you have for people who are like in turmoil, in a fog, if you will?
Give yourself grace. It doesn't mean you are being punished. It doesn't mean you have done something wrong. It may mean you're at a fork in the road. And that fork in the road is giving you an opportunity to grow in a new direction. It's not showing you that you are a failure. In fact, what I put together this past year is a guided journal for folks to help them navigate that. It's called the Five Frogs Transformation Journal. And the FROGS stands for the 5 phases we go through during a disorienting event. In the first one, we tend to spread a fork in the road. We may freak out. We're in fear. We're frustrated. Things feel like they're falling apart. It's the raw emotion stage of things. And we just have to know that that's normal. That's what makes us human and not to judge ourselves for being in the emotion of it. And right alongside that, in the R stage, we're starting to take on new responsibilities. It's a chance where we're reflecting on how we got here. And it's also a chance to reframe what could be felt like a bad situation as something that's got a gift hidden in it somewhere. And then over time, this is the O, we're overcoming obstacles, big and small. And G, we're growing. We are growing in ways that will serve us and others in the future. And the S is we crown a stronger, sovereign, expanded version of ourselves. And from that growth, we can serve and share with others the way you and I are doing today. And so that FROGS journey, which we hop around in between all of the stages, is really the definition of how we become more resilient and how those now what moments are getting us prepared to serve the world and ourselves a little bit differently.
That's awesome. So how did you come up with this idea?
That could be an entire interview, Munira, an entire interview. I, when I was getting divorced, my attorney told me not to come into his office and tell him about some Prince Charming that had rolled into my life until I kissed at least 5 frogs. And I thought it was the strangest thing. And so as I began dating, eventually I began to think of the 5 dates I had as frogs. And I thought, well, maybe I'll write a book about that. And then I very quickly decided that would not be a very interesting book. But the concept of 5 frogs never was, for some reason, I could never get it out of my head. And then one day I heard someone on the television talk about frogs, and they said it was an acronym for fully reliant on God. And it was a time when I wasn't feeling like God was very present in my life. So again, I just sort of took that for what it was, kept moving. Months later, I had a dream about a frog. And the next day, I went shopping with a friend, and we were in this store that had knickknacks from floor to ceiling. And I saw this little ceramic frog, and it was the exact same frog I had dreamed about. The following week, I was cleaning out my office, and I found an old Christmas card from a client, and on it was a picture of a frog, and it was the same frog that I had dreamed about and seen the ceramic statue of, which I did buy that little statue. So I knew there was something here, and I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do with it. But when I began to reflect on this idea of frogs as an acronym, and then began to think about the journey I had been through, and so many of us are always on, the 5 stages started to become clear to me that we go through this 5 frog cycle again and again and again. And that's truly how we become resilient. We go from thinking, I can't do that, to, wait, maybe I can because I lived through that thing and I survived that and I did okay when that happened. So maybe I can. And from there, our confidence and our resilience grows.
I have a friend who wrote a book, and she writes in her book that she went to an interview, and the lady asked her, "Can you?" There was a machine that she had to learn, and she had no clue what this machine was. And the lady asked her, "Can you do this? Can you work this machine?" And she goes, "Yes, I can," having no clue. And the lady eventually hired her, and she got a job. But she says that, I had no clue what this machine was, but I didn't take that as a hindrance, and I said, I can do this. And then eventually she learned how to use the machine, but she jokes about it. And she goes, every time they had a meeting, the manager would always tell her, "You said you could run this machine." And she goes, "I can do it now. I didn't then, but I can do it. I just had to keep that mindset open." And that was open. That's something that we have to always remember. And so it always comes to mind when anybody talks about, "Can you do this?" Yes, I can. I can do anything I want.
Especially women. I see this all the time. We as women discount ourselves very quickly, and there's research out of Harvard about this, that if we look at a job description and we are qualified for all but one thing on that list, we disqualify ourselves and
Right.
say, oh no, I'm not good enough for this. Whereas men tend to look at the list, and even if they meet 60% of those credentials, they say, oh, this is the job for me, I can do that. So I think your message is especially important to remind women and young women to, could she operate that machine? Yes, I can. After I get the right training or mentoring or coaching, I know what I am very teachable. I can
Right.
learn. So her answer was sincere. Yes, I can, with the right circumstances.
And this is such a wonderful topic because it's lighthearted, but the thing is, the fact is, we as women tend to look, some women just forge through the fog and say, "You know what, I'm just going." um, there's some who are going to just paralyze themselves. I see women in my job every day who come in there because we don't have a certain document, and they just find themselves trapped because they don't have one document. And it's not their fault that they don't have it. It's just that they were never given access to it. So when I tell the women that, all you have to do is go do this and come back in a month and you'll have the document you need, they feel relieved, but their partners don't think that's necessary. And I think that's something that we women, there are some cultures who still push back on women and
Mm,
like that. And so this is a good message because we want everybody to take this opportunity and say, these little fogs that can happen all the time. And just like what Brenda has shared, take these opportunities to overcome those little fogs and say, how can I do this and get over this fog, right?
And just remember, everyone, the most gifted, brilliant, amazing people in the world don't get off of this earth without having gone through a lot of fog. That's what makes podcasts like yours intriguing to people, because we see ourselves in the stories of others, and ideally they do become sparks for us. They remind us that this is the human part of us that is here to be challenged, and that doesn't mean there's something terribly wrong with us. It just means we are imperfectly human. And I love sharing the story, not because it's like, oh, I've been there, done that, I'll never need to go through it again. Of course I will, right? With whatever the next challenge my business hits, or if something were to happen to one of my children or my parents, where the economy is, we are seeing, and we're living in a very, very uncertain, volatile world. It's guaranteed. So, building the skills and the mindset for navigating uncertainty, I think, is the best thing we can do for ourselves, knowing we're going to use that skill a lot.
Where can we find your book?
You can find both of my books on Amazon. Five Frogs is there, and TBD was my first book, and I wrote that one soon after my divorce situation, because I wished people knew more about some of the education that I had in organization development and change to help them navigate and lead themselves and others through change, particularly people in leadership positions. So I thought, oh, well, I'll write the book. I'll write a book that a leader can read about navigating themselves and others through change, and provide some of the backdrop and education and information that helped me through my rough time, and write it in a way that's conversational and easy to read and relatable. So both of those are on Amazon.com.
Great. And then how do people find you, Brenda?
The best way is to find me on my website, which is Brenda, the letter K, Reynolds, Reynolds.com, BrendaKReynolds.com.
And
And I'll
you're
be
on social media everywhere, right?
Yeah, and on social media as well. I'll be on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So I welcome that. If anyone feels really inclined to email me, it's easy. It's Brenda@BrendaKReynolds.com. And I would certainly welcome that.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a very interesting conversation. It's just let's get the fog out of our lives. And it doesn't go away completely because it's always going to be there, but that helps you navigate through. Get her book, it's very interesting. And unfortunately, due to time, this is the end of the episode of Munira's Musings. I hope today's conversation sparked an interest and offered a new perspective, or simply encouraged you to see things a little bit differently. If you like to keep exploring stories like this, go ahead and subscribe and hit the like button on our channel. And don't forget to tap the bell icon, because then you know when a new episode has dropped. I really thank you all for joining me today. And until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep tuning to these ideas into action, because you never know where they're going to take you. Until next time, I'll see you next week with another guest. Have a good day. Bye, everybody. Bye, Brenda.
Bye. Thank you, Munira.